Hello everyone, The Nerdy Steve here, and today we will be featuring Mono, Green, Aggro, and Explorer. The link to the list is in the description below. I'm going to talk about the general plan of the deck, and then we'll play a couple of games, so let's go. This deck got a very big buff with the recent Explorer anthology, and that now we have Elvish Mystic with, just like Llanowar Elves, is a 1 mana, 1/1 that taps to add green mana. And what this does and why it's so powerful is now we have a much more consistent way to not only get to play one of our powerful 3/3s on turn 2, but the sooner you get to cast Collected Company, the better. So how does this deck work? Well, we want to cast our creatures much more quickly than our opponent's aggro decks. So our creatures, if we have a Steel Leaf Champion come out on turn 2, this 5/4 is going to beat anything the mono white decks or the mono red decks are going to be able to put out. If we can, same thing with Old Growth Troll. So we're trying to be quicker and bigger than other aggro decks, and because we're also very big and very quick, we can usually kill our opponent's aggro and control decks before they're able to get their combo deck going or able to control the board in a way that, can beat us. So Llanowar Elves adds that consistency. We have Pelt Collector, which can get big very quickly, and a lot of our cards have trample, like Pelt Collector, Werewolf Pack Leader, and Old Growth Troll, so that makes blocking very difficult for our opponent. We also have Steel Leaf Champion, which has another form of evasion, where it makes it really hard for your opponent to chump it with their little creatures. And then we also have removal in Primal Might, so we can pump up our own creature, kill something that's in the way, and then attack. And if we pump up a creature with trample, you get to really choose, or not necessarily choose, I mean, you do get to choose targets and what you're killing, but you can really make combat infinitely more difficult for your opponent to prepare for. And then we also have Scavenging Ooze, which is here because sometimes the life gain is okay, and sometimes the graveyard removal is okay, and sometimes the +1/+1 counters are okay, but all together in this package, it's a disruptive interactive threat that gets bigger and can help sustain you against really aggressive strategies where maybe your big creatures aren't enough to, postpone the early game until you can take control. So Scavenging Ooze does a really good job at bridging that gap. I also talked about Werewolf Pack Leader, and Werewolf Pack Leader is really good here. Just like Collected Company, this deck doesn't necessarily have a lot of ways to generate card advantage. Collected Company can often be a 2-for-1, Old Growth Troll is a 2-for-1, and Werewolf Pack Leader, if you can ever get the Pack Tactics trigger to go off once or twice, you are in a wonderful spot, because just drawing more cards with this deck and be able to get more threats is just really good, and obviously any aggro deck would love to draw more cards, and we get to do that here. And so that's basically the general plan of the deck. We want to use our elves to really speed out our big creatures to overwhelm our opponent as quickly as we possibly can. And with all that being said, let's go play some games. This hand is not particularly good. We have Elvish Mystic, but nothing to really ramp into. But maybe the Primal Mights can be good enough. Our opponent is mono red. Alright, there we go. We drew a perfect card. So if our opponent doesn't kill the Elvish Mystic, we get the turn 2 Steel Leaf Champion, and that might be good enough to hold off our opponent for a little bit. The Stomp is not great. Our opponent has more removal, which they very likely do. Scavenging Ooze will die, and then we're in a kind of, like, not a wonderful spot. But Robber, okay. Werewolf Pack Leader, ouch. let's attack. Our opponent stuck on 2 lands, which is nice. I wonder if this is an Embercleave hand. So I'll block here. Yeah. I'm gonna just keep up mana to pump up the Scavenging Ooze. Because I think if our opponent spends their turn to equip, we'll take that damage. But then I think we can fight what our opponent does next turn. No blocks. And now we have to be a little careful. Okay. So what do we do here now? That. Then what? Do we do it for 2? We get to attack for 7 here. And then maybe we can... Alright, that's... If our opponent taps out... Oh, it's not enough to win. But... Let's do that. 6. If we do it for 3, we get to attack for 9. We take 2 from targeting Bone Crusher Giant, but... I think we might be okay here. Our opponent has to now block the Scavenging Ooze. Every turn. Oh, Robert. Oh, that's lethal. No. GG. That was close. Okay. This is a great hand. We have a turn 1 Elves into a turn 2 whatever one we want. So it's kind of playing out ideally. Let's see what our opponent does here before we get too happy. I think I want a Steel Leaf Champion here because both Steel Leaf Champion and Old Growth Troll cannot be fatal pushed away without our opponent having another thing. And I think the 5/4 might deal more damage against a generic deck. Oh, our opponent... Well, both would have gotten March. Our opponent getting rid of 2 cards is really, really nice for us, though. Our opponent, you know... They're not in as bad a spot as I would like them to be. Necromentia. Okay. I think we're fine. Old Growth Troll. What we're really worried is maybe a board wipe. But next turn we're going to Llanowar Elves and Werewolf Pack Leader. So the following turn we can start drawing cards. And our opponent is getting pressured. Maybe we can just do both of these. Our opponent's still at 20 life. That's a lot of life. A lot of life. Opponent gained a lot from March. Our opponent is doing another Necromentia, which we're kind of fine if our opponent isn't adding any pressure to the board or removing anything that's on the board. So we're kind of fine here. I don't want to do this ooze yet, because I'm a little afraid of a big board wipe. Ooh. But now I'll do that. So if we attack here, our opponent's going to go up to 14. That's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so our opponent can't just block a Llanowar Elves, because this is lethal, because we can pump this up for trample. Right? Okay. GG. We'll keep this hand. We have Llanowar Elves and Elvish Mystic. We have a turn 1, turn 2 play, and then Scavenging Ooze is going to be really, really good. Hopefully. Maybe it won't. I think it will. Our opponent is Waterfront District. The problem here, though, and why this hand may have been a mulligan, is Rhonas isn't particularly great with just one Llanowar Elves. Enhanced Surveillance. Enhanced Surveillance? Well, that was good. The Old Girl Troll allowed us to attack the Rhonas, so, you know, we'll be fine here. Thief of Sanity. Oh, wow. I remember that card. Can we just attack with everything? 5. 5, 9, 10. I guess we just kill the thief. Okay. And that's part of why this deck is really good, right? If you're very, very quick, you kill your opponent also very, very quick. Okay. We have turn 1 Llanowar Elves, followed up by a turn 2 Old Growth Troll. Our opponent has removal for the Llanowar Elves. We get to cast Scavenging Ooze, so not the worst plan or thing in the world to happen. Mausoleum Wanderer. Okay, so our opponent is mono blue. And this is kind of a decent matchup for us because we get to come out underneath their removal, or we get to come out underneath their counter magic, and our creatures in general are a little bigger. So let's do double Scavenging Ooze. Then we get a Primal Might next turn. And maybe Maybe we should have Primal Might that turn while our opponent was tapped out. Mausoleum Wanderer still could have done stuff there. But I think we might be just... We're fine. So let's see what our opponent does here. And it is a snare. So now our opponent can counter, sack the Mausoleum Wanderer to counter the Primal Might. Which is unfortunate, but it happens. But again, our opponent is kind of on the back foot, right? Because we have a lot of this aggressive stuff going on, and our opponent has to be the one to respond to it. So I'm going to do this while our opponent only has one card in hand. Could be counter magic here, which would be unfortunate, but yeah, let's just do that. And a Rattle Chains. Alright. 4, 5, 6, 7. We are on more than a 2-turn clock, and we haven't used a Scavenging Ooze yet. So we're not worried at all. We also still have our Primal Might. Ooh, interesting. Alright. Now our opponent's going to tap down some stuff. Probably the pack leader. We'll do that so our opponent can't tap down our creatures anymore. And then we can Scavenging Ooze. Our opponent does not have lethal here in the air. So we're in a pretty good spot. Here's Obsession, fine. I'd be very impressed if things went so horribly wrong here we lost. And they did not. GG. Alright. Our opponent is on what I'm assuming is some type of life gain deck, which can be a little problematic if we don't draw our removal spells to interact with it on a very, very quick clock, because it can get out of hand very, very easily. So part of me kind of wants to Pelt Collector into Werewolf Pack Leader. I want to maybe draw cards sooner rather than later with Pack Leader. Maybe that's wrong. That's not great, though. Alright. We'll do that here. Yeah, our opponent. Opponent probably is going to collect it. I think our opponent's collected companies are a little more powerful than ours. Yeah. This is a little scary. I think I want to collect a company, see what's going on here. That's good. It triggers both of our Pelt Collectors. So now, okay. I'll take that. Well, thank you for watching me play some Explore Mono Green Aggro. This deck is good, quick, and fun. Things I love. The introduction of Elvish Mystic to this deck can't be stated how doubling the mana dorks in this deck just makes it so much more consistent and then so much more consistently powerful. Being able to reliably get out a turn 2 Old Growth Troll or Steel Leaf Champion is just such a huge advantage in so many matchups, and that's where the power of this deck shines. And so one thing I also learned and could probably do more when playing this deck is to probably mulligan more for that type of hand, where you can either do Collected Company on turn 3 or Steel Leaf on turn 2. Something like that where you can actually really, really gain advantage from Elvish Mystic and Llanowar Elves. Like that's the reason why this deck is good. So probably mulliganing to take advantage of that is something I should do more, and maybe you should too. I don't know. Let me know. But with all that being said, if you haven't already, you should totally like, comment, subscribe. You can watch me stream live at twitch.tv/thenerdysteve. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are. And have a great weekend. And thanks for watching. Bye.